Every morning, the countdown begins for the markets with meticulous research and analysis designed to help you capitalize on the trading day. Beaming live from the CNBC TV 18 Motilal Oswal studio.
Good morning. You're with us here on a fresh new edition of Bazaar Morning Call. We are coming to you live from the CNBC TV 18 Motilal Oswal studios. I'm Prashant with you, my colleagues Nigel and Surabhi. Guys, good morning.
Good morning. Good morning, folks. So middle of the week.
Yeah.
Kind of muddling along right now because Monday was great. Yesterday was a pause. We have lots of global news to discuss as well.
Well, that's right, Prashant. So let's get straight to the action.
The S&P is, by the way, in the black for the year.
Yes.
After being down 17% earlier this year.
I mean, it's just what, May, right? And already we've had up and down and down and up. So it's just an absolutely crazy year so far. But let's take it from the top. I mean, what really happened? As I said, the S&P 500 took out 5,900, 5,900 as a level intraday, and we ended at about 58.86. But we've now reversed all of the losses of 2025 so far. You're black for the year. That's quite something. Now, the final close, S&P about 0.75% higher. Nasdaq was up about 1.6%. The inflation numbers were softer than expected. So this is the thing, right? Despite all the tariffs and all the front loading, and I mean, of course, this agreement, US-China agreement just happened now. The data does not reflect this agreement because this is past data, but it was softer than expectations. But look at the market reaction. That was not, yields were down 1 basis points after the big 12% move the day before. It's about 4.5% of the 10-year. Dollar, though, I think came off more sharply, about 0.75% lower on the dollar index, almost 101 or so by the US market close time. Oil prices, and I've been saying this, oil's kind of felt out of sync with what's happening with equities because it's largely risk on. I mean, if it is financial flows, it kind of goes into everything. And oil is another commodity, and financial flows have been going into equities, and oil's still down quite a bit. So maybe there is a bit more catch-up here in that sense. I'm not talking about fundamentals in terms of more supply in the market or anything of that sort, but keep an eye. Now, President Trump is, of course, in the Middle East, and he said he'll lift all sanctions on Syria. That is one. He also, by the way, said that the Saudis are going to invest $1 trillion. And this is, this trip largely is to kind of show deal wins and investment wins, etc. On the other side, NVIDIA is going to sort of, work with a Saudi public sector company. NVIDIA, by the way, was up about 5-6% yesterday. So more on this later. Goldman Sachs, I put this out yesterday, Goldman Sachs has upped their forecast for GDP in the US to 1%. Now they've also raised GDP forecast for China. So it's 4.6% compared to 4% earlier. This is for this year, that is 2025. And I mean, if you are somebody who follows flows and kind of, regional flows, etc. I mean, China certainly after this deal, it's getting more and more, the view is getting more and more entrenched that they've gotten a lot without giving in too much. So they've been unambiguously the clear winners, at least as far as round one is concerned, between the US and China, Trump and China, rather, I should say. Now, just to tie in the levels, Nifty yesterday, of course, gave back about 40% of Monday's big gains. The immediate support, is the 40-hourly moving average, which is 24,485. It's about 100 points out from where we left off yesterday. That should hold. I mean, if this is tactically risk-on kind of a market, hourly average on the hourly chart should not break. So I'd watch out for that. And of course, the recent highs, etc., are a reference point on the way up. Nifty Bank, the support here is the 20-day moving average, which is 54,504. Again, it's less than 1% away from where we left off yesterday. And of course, here as well, the 550 was the high that we saw yesterday. And I think you need to see a break above that. The big cut, of course, was in the Nifty stocks, not so much in the Nifty Bank. And of course, the broader markets actually, if anything, ended higher. They were actually up on the day, even on a day like yesterday. GIFT Nifty will give you a quick sense of how we are starting. It's a 90-point higher start. Surabhi.
It's looking actually quite impressive because not all markets in Asia are showing this kind of enthusiasm today. The picture is getting a little more mixed because that big event has played out on Monday. The question is what happens from here on. So let's talk about, how some of the Asian markets are poised. So the Hang Seng is doing well. Taiwan's doing well. The mainland Chinese market is absolutely flat. There's some profit taking in Japan. So you're seeing a mix of green and red across the Asian screens. That's point number one. Chip stocks have been higher because of this deal that was announced in Saudi Arabia, with Nvidia looking all set to sell a lot of its powerful chips to a Saudi company. This is 18,000 GB300. These are their most powerful Blackwell chips. They are selling these to a Saudi company called Humain. And because of this large order, the stock was up about 6%. And a lot of that enthusiasm has now spread across to chip-making stocks in Asia as well. This will be used for large data centers, etc., by the Saudi company. The S&P, of course, has turned positive for the year. So the positivity and the follow-through from that US-China trade deal was still very much evident in US stocks. The question is how much of it continues in Asia. And for us, I mean, really where things stand. By the way, crude gained 3%. A lot of markets are pulling back. So crude gained 3%. That was the, that continuing reaction to the US-China trade deal. But since this morning it's cooled off, for us, it's important to note that crude has snapped back to about 66 from falling below 60 a couple of days back. So keep that in mind as well. Now for the Indian market, we've had the reaction to two mega events. This cessation of hostilities between India and Pak and the global, event, which is the US-China trade deal. The two events are over. What now? And the market is in a bit of a what now situation. Now, the what now is not being answered too positively or too emphatically by FPIs, because if you're looking for very large FPI flows coming back in, it hasn't happened yet. Could it start, in the coming days? Who knows? But let's get the flows picture. Yesterday, they were, in fact, on the sell side. Sold off cash market stocks worth about 470 odd crores. Domestic institutions were buyers, so no problems there. About 4,300 crores of buying coming in from the DII fraternity. But that FPI number, it has been a little confusing. 1 or 2 days of selling when the escalation was really on. Then 1 day of pause. Yesterday was a sell. So let's see. The FPI trend's not very clear. There is macro cheer, however, in India, and that's inflation. Guess what? CPI inflation falling to an almost 6-year low. This is the lowest print that we've seen since July of 2019, so looking very good. And the deceleration is being led by food prices, by vegetable prices, because there the fall in prices is very, very severe. Vegetable inflation is at a minus 11% versus a minus 7% month on month. So it's looking good on the CPI inflation front. Obviously, the expectations from the RBI, therefore, perhaps go up a notch. Lots of stocks and news. It's the fag end of earnings season. Some big numbers have come through. Tata Motors is actually not looking too bad. Their profit is above estimate. And more importantly, they've managed to meet the lower end of their margin guidance for JLR. But the commentary is cautious, given what's happening in the global backdrop. Bharti Airtel, again, steady numbers coming in. ARPU has, if you look at it year on year, it's a massive surge, 245. But of course, quarter on quarter, that ARPU is flat. But otherwise, the numbers are more or less ahead of estimates. And watch out for defense stocks, right? They rallied yesterday as well because the mood is still very much in their favor. The numbers have to add up as well. And for Garden, they're actually adding up. The numbers came in and they're looking very, very good. So we'll watch out for this. Leave you with today's results tally. Some interesting names today as well. There's Eicher Motors, Lupin, Shree Cement. There's HAL, Hindustan Aeronautics, and Jubilant Foods. So I think a lot of those earnings will keep us busy today. Nigel.
Well, that's right. It looks like the Nifty could see a little bit of a consolidation in the near term, but it's heartening to see that we have the broader markets that are outperforming, because that's what makes your portfolio look quite good. Let's take the top cues then. Yesterday's trading session saw the premium on the Nifty. In fact, that contracted. You were wondering whether or not there was unwinding of positions or there were shots that were getting added. I'll tell you what. There was a bit of both, because there was unwinding of positions for the Nifty as well as the Nifty Bank. If you look at the total open interest, it was low in yesterday's trading session. So that's the market on the whole. And from the FI basket, well, they added short positions. I was mentioning this a couple of trading sessions ago. You want some shots into the system, and it seems my wish at least has been granted, because you had some long unwinding in trade yesterday, and you had some shots that did get added. And now if you look at the net short positions, well, it's moved to around 35,000 contracts on from the FIs on index futures. So this is the highest that we've seen in the last 20 days or so. Even if you look at the stock futures, well, they added some shorts yesterday, but that could be a bit of an arbitrage that's playing out. So there was some kind of, unwinding that we saw on the stock futures. We just get to that in a bit. The clients, what did they do? Well, the clients have been getting this correct, and they were net short on the index. Now they've done a bit of a U-turn. So they've gone net long. So this actually is a good combination for the markets to trend up. The FI is short, the clients long, because they have been getting it correct. But as I said, what do the FIs do, on stock futures? That comes up for you. Some long unwinding as well as short addition. There could be an element of arbitrage out here. Moving to the options data then. Yesterday, we had made this point that the PCR was moving towards the higher end of the range. So it had moved to around 1.3. The higher end of the range was around 1.5, 1.6. But that's cooled off. How did that happen? a lot of those puts that were written, they came in for unwinding in yesterday's trading session. And on the call side, you had a mix of activity that was seen out there. The call writers, in fact, came back into play. The 24,600 call had a good amount of open interest built up out there, premium at around 128 rupees or thereabouts. And the 24,800 call as well, there was a mix of activity that we saw out here. Which brings us to the levels. Going by the options data, going by the recent resistance level, on the way up, the 24,500 was a bit of a hurdle. So that becomes the near-term support. This is the broad range you're looking at for the day. But you'll have to say the trend is still up till the 20 DMA is protected on the Nifty. And the Nifty Bank as well, that will become the first reference point for today's trading session, which is just 1% or so away. We should get the 20 DMA up for you on the screen. Stocks that I'm looking at, well, I'm looking at Z. That's one of the biggest underperformers of the last few years. But the stock actually has perked up, and yesterday it moved on very, very high volumes as well. They say that the promoter knows what's the asset value, and the promoter holding in this company is very, very low. But it was reported on the exchanges that 2 sessions ago, the promoter entity went ahead and chipped in some shares. So I'll keep an eye out on Z because the commentary has been good, and now the promoter is sneaking in there and, in fact, buying some shares.
Okay, all right, got that. Thanks, Nigel, very much for that. So let's see whether the bulls can actually build on the momentum. Yesterday was a pause day. Will they come back or not? That's the question.